In this video, we're going to have a look at how to add the icon to pretty much any content element, and we're going to have a look at adding that via the pseudo class, the before pseudo class. You could also use the after pseudo class, and just to show you some of the issues that you'll face when you want to do it that way. So sometimes it's easier just to use the pseudo class than actually editing the template. So in this case, for example, we have three content elements here. We wanted to add an icon. And instead of editing the template, what we can do is, if I inspect, you'll see that I've added a before class, a pseudo class, and that allows me then to insert the icon and also then to style it and change the color. Now, the styling works a little bit differently, as well as how we insert that as opposed to a regular image. So in order to get the SVGs active on the website, we've used the plugin. And the plugin that we've used here is called SVG Support. And the reason for using SVG Support is that it contains a lot of great features, as well as sanitizing the upload. So that just means checking that there's no bad code within the SVG code. Once the sanitization takes place, you can then also minify, you can inline your SVG code. And then you can also style the SVG elements directly using CSS, as well as some other features. But just to point out that in the normal course of events, if you entered an image, then you could simply go image, class, style SVG, and the image source, or you could use your own class, and then the source once again would be your source.svg, and the styles would work as they would normally work within a normal class. But because we're using the before statement, what happens now is that we're not uploading that as an IMG file. It's still going to be linked to the SVG, but it's done in a slightly different way. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to add, let's add an after to this. So the before was the envelope, and now just to look for an icon, this website called flaticon.com, and I've just gone into the U icons collection, gone through, had a look, and I previously then just downloaded this SVG file. So to get to that information, you find the icon you like, you click on it, and then you have the option here to download. So I've downloaded the SVG file, and I've already uploaded that into my media folder. So the media library works exactly the same way. You just drag and drop the icon on the folder, and it will then update. So to give you an idea, what I'll do is I'm going to just head over to my downloads folder. There's the globe. I just downloaded, drop it on, and there we have the globe. So that's how easy it is then to bring in the element, and of course once it's then included, you can access it. Now you won't be able to do this unless you have the SVG support plugin installed. Without the SVG support, WordPress will not allow you to upload an SVG file because of the XML format and the security issues around that. Now this plugin already has 1 million plus uploads, so I would say that it's working, well maintained, and does the job. So okay, so in our media library then we have these icons, and what I'll do now is I'll just add this global icon, and there we have the URL. So I'm going to copy that URL to clipboard, and I'm just going to add the after tag as you would normally add. So I would then simply inspect that item, right, get the code for that particular item, add the after. So we'll just do that now. After, head over to content, or add the field content in the CSS, and then two inverted comma singles, and I'm just going to add the letter A, and you can see that the letter A has been added, and we can see that it's working. Now if I was going to add the SVG, I would add it in a similar way. So it would be a case then of, it's a URL, so we're telling it what it is, and we're now going to open brackets, close bracket, and then between those two curve brackets, we just paste in the SVG file. Now you'll see that the moment we do that, that the SVG file doesn't actually adhere to any styling. So if I, for example, here put height, and I said the height was 20 pixels, it would do nothing. If I said width 20 pixels, it would do nothing. It's going to change the after styling that it will do. So it's changing the after styling, and you'll see that if I change the height, for example, or the width in this case, you'll see that it's changing that styling, but of course the icon remains unaffected. So to get that to work, the best way to do that then is to enter no content in the content space. So the content space then is empty space. So we just do the single inverted comma, enter. Right. So now we've removed the icon. We can remove these references to the size. And now what I'm going to do is actually in that space add some padding first so that we'll see what we put in there. And the padding, let's just go with 20 pixels. So now we can see the padding's been added. And now what we do is we add a background image. So background image, background image, and we go URL again and simply paste in the SVG file and enter. But now we can't see it because it's so big. So we need to reduce the size. So now what we're going to do is background size, and we're going to set the size. Let me just read. So we'll go background size, and the size we will say cover. So now we can see the icon, and it covers that space for the icon. So there we have the code, and now what I'm going to do is just copy that. And what I'm going to do is head over to customize. And then what we'll do is just paste that into our style sheet. And I'll publish that. And now you'll see that when we scroll down, we have the globe appearing where we want it to appear. If I want the globe to appear across all these elements, then it's just a case of identifying the styles related. So to do that, we just inspect, and immediately I can see that in terms of the style, let's just make this a bit wider. We're going to look for the atomic medium button. So I'm just going to copy atomic medium button, and if I was now to remove that ID and attach it to that class, you'll see now that all the atomic medium buttons will get that globe. I'm not sure if there are any other on the page. Yes, there's one down here under get oxygen, and you'll see it's not fitting too well. So to make sure, I don't know if there's any more, just the one. So to make sure now that we're only targeting that one, I'm just going to look for the ID of this section, and not the block, but the whole section. So we can do the columns, or here we have the entire section. We just copy that ID. And now I'm going to place the ID before that. And now you'll see we only have that selection applying to that particular content item. So we'll publish. And the good news now is that we've applied the icon to just this content area. Perhaps though we want to change the color. Now to change the color is a very different color scheme. So here we use filter. And filter is probably more like filtering an image in Photoshop than it is when it comes to applying color. So normally we would just go color red, for example, and we'd have red. But because we now have to filter as if it was an image, we have to use the filter style. So now what we can do is immediately, if we want to filter this, say from black to white, we could go invert, and immediately then we've just inverted black to white. However, in order to get it to work, we have to add a few more of these filter classes or styles. So the next one to add would be sepia, and the sepia means that we can get colors besides just black and white. So make that 100%, and inversion though I'm going to do at 0 so that we keep the black. And to get the color, then we need to look at what we call hue rotate. So hue rotate now is measured in degrees, and so there we might want to go for obviously 360 degrees. So we could do something like 300 degrees. Now what we want to do is do the saturation. So how much rich do we want this color to be applied? And here you can go pretty high in the numbers. So there, let's go to 2,000%. Right, so we've got now the inversion. What I'm also going to do now is start to change that value, and then let's take that up to 100. And what we're also going to do now is add a brightness, and let's make the brightness there 100%. And we can also add a contrast value, so that would be how much color gets applied. So you could do 0.5 or the maximum, and we'll go with the maximum of 1. And you can also add a grayscale, and let's do the grayscale at 100%. So we've added these items, and we'll publish that. Now, in order to start getting some color, it is a very different kind of color scheme. So you'll see here we've used that to get the yellow. So now it's actually easier if we go back to the inspect, and we head down and we just go to the after. And if we select the after now and we have a look at that class, and I'm just going to head back here and check that. You rotate, we shouldn't have the code on, right? Should be something like that. Let's publish that. Now you'll see here that when it comes to the degree, you actually have a rotating arm. And as I move that rotating arm, you'll see that the color starts to change. So the saturation, I'm going to take all the way up. You can take it up very high. So we'll take that up to 9,000%. The grayscale will drop to 0 so that we get a color. Now what you'll see is that when I hit the degree and I start turning, you'll see that the color changes. So if I wanted yellow, that would be a really nice yellow. And now I can start to change just how much yellow I have. So maybe in the brightness, if we lower the brightness, you'll see it gets darker and darker and darker. Eventually it'll go back to black. So to get a full color, you want to go with a brightness of 100%. If we look at the contrast and we take that to 0.1, you'll see that anything over 1 will give you the closer to 1 you get, the more yellow we'll have, because that's the most contrast. So the contrast ideally then is either to be set at 1, which is the default, or not to enter a value at all. But you can. The grayscale is, as it says, as we increase the grayscale, the grayer the image will get. So we obviously don't want any grayscale in this case, so we drop that down. Well, I want to make sure that's on 0. And if it's on 0, and the default is 100%, so if I take the 0 out, it'll go completely gray, If we put a 0 in, we get a nice bright color. And then, of course, the saturation level. If I change the saturation level here, you'll see that it's not very yellow at all. And if I take that to 9,000%, that grayscale went back. So let me just drop that down. So on 1,000, it's not very yellow. So if that was at 100%, the saturation isn't enough. So we take that to, say, 500%, it's more yellow. Take it up to 900, it's even more. And if we add another 0, we're getting a really full saturation level there. Same, that's 1,000% saturation, and that's at 9,000%. So now we have the same color that we had on the envelope, and we say, no, hang on a second, it's great, the color's good, but it's still a little bit too big. I'd like to reduce the size. So because it's a background image, we'll go background size, and the background size here, initially, or we did say cover, so to then change the size would really be adjusting the padding here. So if I reduce the padding of my content element, then I'm also then adjusting the size of the icon. So the more padding I have, the bigger it gets. It'll just fill that space, whatever it is. So that's pretty much then how we can make that work. Just one other thing to look at when adding it to the content here is we just check quickly that it's mobile. Good. So let's just close that. Right. Now, of course, it's reset the styling. So we've changed the colors again, but we do see that it fits mobile nicely. And then we just quickly head over here into customize. And now that we know what the settings are, scroll down, head over, and immediately now we know that we need to set the grayscale to 0. We need to up the saturation to a lot higher. Sepia we can set to, now the sepia is an interesting one. So we need the sepia in order for the color to show. So there we could set that, say, to 100. And now the degrees must change. So 330 degrees gives us a nice yellow. And then the padding, we're going to drop that down to maybe 15. So there we've added the icon, and we'll publish that. Now there's one other setting that you need to look at when it comes to doing that, on one of these content elements, and that is to look here at aligning all those elements. So the class that I've had to add here on the actual button then is we've had to add this display flex, because without the display flex, then this is the kind of layout that you would have. So to get everything to work really nicely, we go with the display flex and we set everything to be in a row. Alternatively, if I wanted to change that, I might want to maybe do it in a column, and then we'd have the icons underneath each other, but I've opted for that. So that's the other set of settings that you need to have a look at. And once again, we've set it for that section, and then we've also applied that to the link and the selector there on the A atomic medium button, so that we have just those items styled in that way. So that's pretty much then how you can add an icon to, in this case, we've added it to this medium button. Let's do another example. So what I'm going to do now is head over to the product section, and we'll see about adding the same thing maybe to a button in the shop. So I head over to the shop, and here we have our buttons. And let's say I wanted to just add a quick shopping icon onto the button. I'm going to inspect the button, and it'll work in the same way. I'm going to add, and in this time, we'll just add that shopping cart in front. So we'll go a button, and we'll just go with the add to cart button, not the Ajax one. So let's just do that and remove the other classes, and then we'll go before. Right, so we have the before, and now we'll go content, and just to test, we'll add the letter A. So we see the letter A has been added. And now what I'm going to do is just have a look and see if there are any other buttons that have the A. So that one has the A, that one has the A, that one has the A. Okay, so now let's add the icon, and it's going to work in the same way. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove that A, and then we're going to add padding, and the padding, let's do 15 pixels. That seemed to be a good size. And the next thing to add then is going to be the background image. Background, let's just go background image, and that will be URL. Right, so let's go and get the background image. So I'm going to head over here to my media library, and we'll go with this cart. We'll copy the URL to the clipboard, back to the shop, and pop that in. Now you once again we'll see that it's obviously too big, so we go background position, and we'll just say that to cover. Let's just background size, not background position, sorry. Background size is set to cover, right. So with that in place now, you'll see that the icon is showing, and it's not really showing in a very good spot. So once again, what I'm going to do now is we've set the padding. Maybe I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So maybe that'll fit in a bit better. And now we're going to do to get the color right. So there, the filter. And in this case, I'm just going to go invert and make that value 1, and it's the default value that popped in. And I think I'll do it, we'll just leave it at that for now. And what we need to do is, I'm going to copy this. And now what we're going to do is just show you something else that you can do. So the next thing that we can see that we're going to need to do here is we've added the icon, and that's great. Something else that we can do then is I'm going to head over to that before, and I just want to show you that what we can also do here is just add a border to the and I'll make that white, and we'll give that a border, and we'll make that 5. So you can also look at creating a border for your icon, but not always the best thing to do because of the way that we are going to be using the color. And you'll also see here that when using the border and the filter properties and the color, that you do get a different color coming through than perhaps the one that you would like. So to show you, you can see here how the color now is showing as this turquoise color, and what I actually entered was red. And the reason for that is because of the use of this filter. So the best way to do that, if you wanted to get it the same, is to go with black. So if I go with black, then the same color filters will apply. So now, if we just copy that across, and I'm going to add that here. Well, I'm going to add this class. I'm going to update the class values here and just show you how. Right, so I'm just going to pop this in here. And so now if we go hue dash rotate. Now we know that the yellow was 330. And we also know that we need to set the sepia. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just copy the colors that we use here. So this is, there's a lot more work to do, but once you've worked it out, it does get a bit easier. And you'll see now that we have kind of like the same effect happening here. And if I change the padding, say I made the padding 20, so we have a nice big image. The problem though is that it's not creating space between the border of the icon and the border radius. So to do that, we would have to look at background size, and then we might want to look at 50%, and instead of that, and then we remove the cover option. So now we're setting the background size. In that case, 50%, that's obviously still not enough. Sorry, background position. Yeah, so the background size we have to change. So we'll just make it 5 pixels. Instead of percent, let's just make this 15 pixels, and right, so the background size is now 15 pixels, and right, so there we have, we've made it too small. So the other thing that we must do now is we don't want the repeat. So we go with background repeat, and the option there we'll put in is no repeat. Right, so now we just have the one item, and now we can go, we've done the background size. Now we'll do the background position. So background position, and we go 50% and 50%. So now we've positioned it in the middle of the background. We've created space around the icon. And now when it comes to the size of the icon, we set it here. So if I wanted to, I would have to set the width and the height to the same. And if I wanted to change that, move that up to completely round, it would be 50 pixels. Obviously, this is quite big on the button. And also, we want this to display inline in a flex method. We're just going to inspect here, and we head over, and this time we're going to target the actual button. So we add the actual, so there we have the class, and we use the flex property, and you'll immediately see we have these settings that we can apply. So what we're going to do is make sure it's applied for the row, And then what we're going to do is align the elements, as you can see. And I think that would be all that we would need to do there. So with that in place, we can just copy that, paste it in here to this CSS. Of course, once you're done, then this CSS you can simply just take out and put in your CSS file if you want. Here then I'm going to change the size of that icon. It's really far too big, so that can still work. And what I might do then is just drop the background size here to 15 as well. Maybe we can just do one property there because it's the same. And now what I'm going to do is just add a bit of margin to the right. So let's just margin north, and then for left and right I'm just going to go 5 pixels. And there we have our icon on the button, really nicely put. And wherever that icon comes up on the cart, then we see that it's in position. With some of the different buttons, of course, we'd need to just add a different class, because this button here, for example, is for items that have variations. So if we inspect that, add the class, it's slightly different to the rest, and we can just copy that, paste it in here, and then you'll see that that is also then adjusted correctly. So that's how you can then add a button, not using an icon set, but actually using CSS. And you can, of course, then add it to specific, or you can add it to just the general class. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. And then, of course, you could style it then further. For example, if it's an item on sale and we have a look at the classes there, you'll see that there's a class called sale for items that are on sale. So if we look at the ordered list for the sale, you'll see here that there will be a class in here that says sale. So you could actually then target sale with a slightly different icon color. But yeah, that's pretty much how we can do that. Simply publish, or alternatively copy that now, place it into your style sheet, and we have it working there. And if I go into that sale item, and we have we have other items at the bottom that then inherit the same class, and you'll see that that's carried through all the way through into our related products as well. And if we look at that on mobile, and we scroll down, yeah, you'll see that the icon is then carried across and formatted correctly on mobile as well. So that's how you can add an icon then either to, in this case we added it to a shopping button, or here we've added it to an individual content element. And if you look at that on mobile, then you see that that looks great on mobile as well. So yeah, that's pretty much how you do it. It's a little bit more fine-tuning, but it can be done. So hope you found that interesting, and thank you for watching.